everybody! So guess what we're doing today? We are doing fedoras two ways. We're going to be doing a flat brim and a rolled brim, and hopefully I'll get you started with everything you're going to need, and I will try to show you the cheapest, easiest way possible to do it at home. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. Let's get started. Okay, so we've got our materials here. Not as much as you'd need for a lot of other things. I'm going to be using basically, if you're not in the USA, there are different names for this guy here. This is a cape line or capeline. I know that it's called different things elsewhere. I was talking to someone from Australia and they have different names for it. So just for the purposes here, if you wanted to get one of these, you can go on Manhatco. I'll put it in the links. You can get one of these made out of felt, wool felt, for maybe about, I think, $10 or $15. It's not terribly expensive, so you can start with this. And the hoods are different, so make sure you get the cape line. The hoods are just this part here. So we want this full with, like, you know, the brim-ish part here. So you want that. It just looks like kind of like almost like a floppy hat. So that is what we need to start with. You definitely need one of these because otherwise, I mean, we're not doing too much today. You need your shellac. I use shellac just because it's a lot less toxic. It dries completely non-toxic. You can actually use this on like edible wooden spoons and things like that. I wouldn't go around, you know, licking it off the hat and everything like that, but hey, that's just me. This dries really, really nice. Always, always, always do a fabric test just to make sure, because if you're doing any like whites or really, really light cream colors, it shouldn't stain, especially if you do it on the inside, but always do the test because sometimes it will seep through different dyes that they use for it or bleaching methods. It'll actually leach the color out of this and stain it. So again, always do a fabric test on this and maybe wait, let's see, more than 24 hours, because like, and then put it out in the sun, especially for the white fabrics. Like the darker fabrics, it usually doesn't matter. I actually don't have my sandpaper here. Hey, there should be a little piece of sandpaper here. We need that too, but I didn't move it over from my other side of the room. So let's pretend there's a piece of sandpaper here. We want very fine grit sandpaper. You need your brush. You can get these at like a Sally's Beauty Supply and stuff. They have very, very lightweight boar hair here, and it's heavyweight here. So this is like the best kind to use. Wonderful. You can get these at hobby stores. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's, any hardware store. You just need the paintbrush for the shellac. You need your colored thread for whatever Petersham / grosgrain you're using. I actually get mine at Britex. They're not paying me to advertise this, but I do like theirs because it's nice and soft. It's pliable. It doesn't burn. It has a little bit of rayon in it. But it's got mostly cotton, so it irons really, really nicely and has a nice curve to it. So you're going to also need elastic or some twill or, you know, cotton banding. That's to secure your hat to your hat block. You'll see that later. You need water, and you also need a source of steam. So I've talked about this in my other videos. I have an industrial Jiffy steamer. It's very, very useful, but they're kind of pricey. A tea kettle is the best one to use at home. Like the normal fabric steamers or your iron will not get hot enough. But just be really super careful, guys, because I don't want anybody burning themselves or hurting themselves when they're doing hat stuff. I burn myself all the time on just my Jiffy steamer, so be careful of your stove when you're heating stuff up. But these are the starting materials that you'll need, so grab everything, get it together, and let's get started. Okay, so when you get started, you're going to need your hat forms or one of these guys over here. This is a wig, I don't know what you call it, wig dummy, wig something. You can get one of these on Amazon. If you have one of these already, or a styrofoam head with yeah, I can remember words today really good. Tin foil, that's called tin foil. You can start with those if you don't have anything else, but I would recommend actually going to hat shapers. Again, they're not paying me for this. I'll put the notes in the link, just because these are rather affordable for anybody who wants to get started on hats. I would start actually with the bowler form, because you can actually make a fedora hat from this. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really, really easy, and you have something that's a little bit more versatile to give you your overall shape. But this is to just, you know, get it started and stretch it out. So we have our fedora shape here, again, from Hat Shapers. So these are our base shapes for our crown of our hat. So we're going to be doing the flat brim and a rolled brim. You need something to roll your brim on. This is what I actually have at home. I was racking my brain about what you can use, and you could probably actually get like a pool noodle from like, I guess, the dollar store. Wrap it in tin foil and then cover it with a like a towel in a strategic way, because it's not going to be getting very, very hot. You're just going to be steaming it and stretching it. So if you don't pull too hard on it and you can tack it down, that would work pretty well. But that's just to get you started and see how well it works out. Let me know. But I am much more comfortable using this. It comes 2 parts. These I actually got from an antique store. I actually see them all over the place. Not terribly expensive. They actually have the measurements on them. This stand was a lot harder to find. It was actually gifted to me. So this actually makes it easier to work with. If you just get this, then just like kind of prop it up on something. Or hey, if you find one of these, it's awesome. Good luck with that. Or hey, maybe if you have a woodworking friend, they can actually build you a stand. So this is a little bit more advanced, but this is what I'm comfortable working with. Let me know if you guys find these, because I absolutely love antique finds. I like finding hat stuff in antique stores, so I want pictures if you guys find some, so let me know. And also, yes, the pool noodle will work just as well, because we aren't actually like applying an iron or anything to it. It's just steam and stretching. So yeah, that should work out pretty well for you. Okay, so we're over here at our steamer. That's that lovely bubbling noise that you hear. So I'm gonna wet this really, really well. Sometimes they have like a stay for the coloring, and it doesn't absorb very, very well. You can see it just kind of sitting there, so you just like want to pat it in or grab a wash rag and just kind of dampen the crap out of it. These are not my favorite cape lines to use. That's mainly because their little dome here, you can see how shallow that is. Like, good high-end cape lines will give you a dome that's pretty comparable to this, so this is going to take a little bit of stretching and frustration. I imagine that these crowns are going to be a little shallow no matter how much I pull on this. These guys actually were not from Manhatco. They have really, really good cape lines. These were actually, again, a gift. Somebody had them in their barn. Really, really nice. They're like, hey, can you use these? Yes, yes, of course I can. So actually, you might see a little bit of dust getting kicked up from it. Okay, so I feel like we're nice and saturated. We can go over to the steamer. Now you want this nice and hot. I usually let it sit there for a little while. It basically gets hot enough to not be able to touch. Like, so you get pretty hot. Heating this up helps you be able to pull the fibers apart slightly, and that's what stretches the fabric. If you pull and pull and pull, eventually it will tear because the fibers have no more to stretch. Wool has some pretty good stretch in it. And this is actually pretty thick, moderately. So it should have a little bit of stretch. I know I've mentioned before in my videos, wool is not my favorite fabric to work with. It's just the fur felt, much cleaner lines, a lot easier to stretch. It doesn't really shrink on you, but it is definitely way more pricey. Prices keep going up. These you can make actually a really nice hat out of them. It's not my favorite, but hey, it still makes a good hat, right? Alright, we are nice and hot. This is probably going to be a couple off and ons. Let's see how well I can stretch this. Oh, it's not too bad. Hey, how about that? A little puckering on the top. I might just need one more. This takes a lot of force on something that's a bit too small for the block. You can tell I'm pushing down really hard. There we go. So, now, you had a styrofoam head, I would not recommend pushing down so much. The hotter the better, so the more heat you add to it, the more pliable it is, so. I have burned myself on this thing so many times, it's not even funny. But you can actually see how much of a nice dome-shaped peak that we've got going on there just from that one stretch. So this one ought to do it. Whew. Alright, go in there. Now I don't have to actually pull as hard. Look at that. Alright. Beautiful. Got that nice dome shape. She stretched out nice. Here I am talking all that smack about whoa, and just look at that. How nice that is. It was like, oh yeah, let me show you. Yes, I'm aware I'm really silly. So this one we'll use the elastic bands. I got a couple of them. Let's see if we can stretch this without snapping. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you're nice. Nice and tight. Fingers in there. Look at that. Nice shape. I'm sure you're looking at this going, is that it's not a fedora? It will be. So this has to sit out and dry for 24 hours to hold its shape. So we're going to let that dry for 24 hours. Let's put that in a little bit more. So there is a round shape to start with. Same process. Again, I'm probably going to have to stretch her twice. So that's a nice high dome. So if you hear a nice buzzing noise that sounds like a bunch of mechanical angry bees, that is my neighbor doing his lawn. Because of course we're filming. There has to be something going on outside that's noisy. So there we go, nice and hot. Woo. So if you end up falling in love with the Jiffy Steamer, you can order these guys online. I'm trying to remember how much I got mine for. I want to say maybe like $95, but this was a long while ago. Don't hold me to it. I've had this ever since I started. There are lots of places to get these online if you decide you want one. I'd say shop around. There's some places like other like hat sellers, they sell them, but they jack up the price significantly. I ain't gonna name names. But yeah, I'd say shop around. Woo, you hot. Alright. Let's see if we can stretch this out real quick. Put it back on. Stretch. This hat shape I've had for a really long while. You can see it actually wiggling just because I have used it so much. Eventually, I am sure that I'm going to snap it. These are actually meant for wet felting. They are not meant for what I'm doing, but I like them. They're cheap, they're good to start out with. Those wooden hat blocks are kind of pricey. We're working on making our own. As much as I want a bazillion hat blocks, paying like $400 for one small part of them. Well, it's something I can afford. I don't know about you. Alright, so, whew. Gotcha. Alright. That went down nicely. Alright, so we've got the under shape here. So you just want to take your hands and just massage it into the shape. Hopefully you can see over here. Just taking my fingers and just pushing it everywhere it needs to go. Let's see, we'll go this way. See that? Nice. Likes to go. Yeah, look at that, beautiful. Nice pinch right there. And a nice concavity. Goes all the way back that way. So if it starts to cool down a little bit too much and it's not going where you need it to, you could just introduce it back to the steam. Is it like you got all those little pillets you'll have to get rid of later on? Okay, just tugged on it because that was awesome. Alright, take this, turn you off. We don't need you. I'm showing you two different methods of securing it. Just with whatever you have. So this, run the seam along here, just loosely, and then tighten. Tighten again. Tighten again. Tighten again. Give me some more string. Oh, I bet you can hear that. I know I can. This sounds like a bunch of angry bees. I like bees though. Yes, I am aware that I ramble during these videos, so don't dare leave me some comments. Be like, oh my god, you just talk about weird stuff. Be like, hey, that's what you're here for, hats and rambling. So, nice and tight. Okay. So this is like really tight and it's a little high up because it's kind of a slide, but you can kind of get your hands in there. It's a little hard on your fingers, but right in there. This also kind of gives you a little bit of a nice, like, I wouldn't say finish line, but a nice line for where the end of your crown is. So it like digs nicely into the fabric. It's nice and tight. It doesn't slide. Let's pat this down a little bit. Lift this up so you can see. Tuck that down. There you go. These outside. If you want to know how to do the shellac, you can look up the At-Home Hat Making 101. It's shellac and brims. It's not a lot to go over in one video, but I mean it has its own thing, so I didn't want to overload or front load this video. So I sprayed it. It's got this to protect the hat block. So move this out of the way. Boop. You can see this guy's still a little bit flexible. I wanted to actually still keep him a little flexible until I'm finished, and then I'm going to make it nice and stiff. Like, I'm going to stiffen this brim out considerably. But right now, what I want to do is actually flatten the brim. We want to get this nice and wet. I think I've mentioned before that there are other hat makers that do like old Western style-ish hats, and they actually use the old method of it, and they heat and boil their cape lines. It's an amazing way to do it. It fascinates the heck out of me. I don't have the space or I should say tenacity to do that. I would probably hurt myself considerably, so we're just actually gonna wet ours down instead of boiling it. We're gonna wet it and heat it. So keep in mind that you're going to want an old iron for this if you've already shellacked. I Usually just try to keep my shellac to the underside, that way I don't get any on the outside and ruin a lot of my equipment, because it gets sticky and really gross. The reason I'm wetting this down is twofold. It helps with the pliability, and also you will burn this. You can actually like burn designs in it too. I actually have had several people contact me about wanting to do that. So it's fun because it actually does take like heat nicely and also not so nicely, aka the burning. So, not worried too much about these ragged edges. Those are actually going to get cut off after this dries. So you're going to hear this nice sizzling noise. This is real hot. Keep in mind with a lot of the stuff that I've been doing isn't like 100% traditional milliner or hatter ways of doing things. I am trying to just gear this toward more of how you guys can do this at home without a lot of equipment. I'm getting a little bit of flack for that. Like, this is not 100% traditional millinery. I'm just trying to make it user-friendly. Not all millinery is user-friendly. So you can see this is already nice and heated up. It's already starting to flatten out. Don't want to spend a long time on this one because I got the other one to work on with you too. Beautiful. This gets way hotter than your traditional iron. So you may have to go over this a couple of times. There's honestly an iron that I would love to get my hands on. It's a tailor's iron, an old tailor's iron. It sort of has this shape, only it's like narrower and smaller. Oh my goodness, I'm in love with it. They're really hard to find. But I would love to get my hands on one. You can see, it's nice. Got some steam going. Make sure this stays damp. It starts to dry. You can use your wash rag to go over top of it to keep from burning the fabric. You can see, like, you can start seeing where it starts to get dry. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It actually starts to change color when you go back and forth. If it starts to dry out, like this part's getting pretty dry. So just wanted to flatten our brim out. Don't like what you're doing right there. Oh, thank you. Be nice. Again, this is wool. It's a lot more forgiving than the fur felt when you're working with it as far as the steam and the heat. Fur felt burns really quickly and easily. Wool, not so much. So I would recommend just start with your wool if you're not familiar with what you're doing, and then once you are comfortable and can realize, you know, your heat and your gradiencies and everything like that, you could just upgrade, because I don't think you want to be spending $50 to $75 on a cape line and then burn the heck out of it. And then, I mean, hey, maybe you can make a style out of a burnt hat. Not going to yuck anybody's yum. So this we're going to have to let sit on a flat surface for couple of hours to 24 hours just to keep it flat. Anything you could use to weigh down the brim around it. You can even get like a piece of plywood and cut the hole in it and just set it down would be the best thing. A couple of books on it. Irons just to weigh the entire brim down, just because it's going to want to go bloop and fold up on you. So this one's pretty much done. Going to reshape and actually add some more shellac to that, because this is very soft. I want this to be like nice and hard. So we're going to put this one aside. Hey, come on up. Thank you. Okay. So I don't know about you. I'm always excited about using this. Grab over here. So actually I'm going to set this aside just a little bit. I'm going to show you guys. This is going to be in the way. And so, you're like, oh my goodness, this is round. What are we going to do with that? Well, I'm going to show you how to actually turn this into a fedora shape. A little bit of moisture in there. This one's a little bit more shellac. Stuff everywhere. Today's a bit of an off day for me. It's a multi-day thing, so I figure I want to get this done and show you guys stuff. I promise I'm not trying to procrastinate. So we want to heat this up nice and good for the hat to be nice and pliable. I'm going to try to keep it moving so you don't burn yourself. This takes a little bit. Whee! So if you have your round shape, and that's what you had started with to move on to your fedora, this is really fun. You can already see that just by touching it, it's already indenting. So you are nice and hot down here. So pick what you want to be the front of your hat and the back of your hat. You just take your hand and run a seam. You see that? I'm actually taking this part of my hand here, the heel of my hand, and kind of pushing in here and holding the front of the hat. So, and then you get your pinch. We're a little lopsided there. So let's fix you. Whoop. There we go, easy fix. And if you spray this ahead of time and it's nice and stiff, this will hold its shape a lot better. As you can see, this is very not so stiff, but I wanted to show you guys. And you can just, pinch this into as many shapes as you want. You can make it more crunchy. There we go. Just pinch the front. It's fun, just have fun with it. Don't stress about it. See, like this, a little bit crooked. Boop, boop, boop. Move, move, move. Ta-da! I don't take anything seriously. So, I have this, or your pool noodles. Pool noodles. Promise I can talk. I'm going to get this wet, nice and wet. This is a lot bigger than I want it to be. I could probably cut this down a little bit while it's on here. And actually just push this back out because I want it to go down there. Don't mind me, just talking to myself. I'm not going to cut this to where I'd want it for the final. I just want to trim off some excess so it'll lay a little bit better for me. This is the rolled brim fedora. Are
arguably you could probably try to do this by hand once you add a lot of shellac and some heat. I haven't tried to do that way before, but hey, if you guys want to give it a try, let me know how it works out. So lay this flat. This is an old hat block, so putting these pins in is murder on my fingers. So what I'm going to do is get this here where I want it. It's going to dry. I want all the moisture and water to dry out of it. And then I'm actually going to spray shellac over it while it's still in its shape. See, this thing drives me nuts. I'm going to hammer this in. This thing is like petrified wood. Oh, my mallet's missing. Just stick this in. Alright, we're just going to do this for demonstration purposes only. Because my mallet's missing. I can tell I have it together today. Okay. So you see I'm putting them on the inside and the outside. Just so it stays put. I want to stretch it out. There we go. So I'm going to do this all around the whole thing. And I am not going to make you watch me put it all around the whole thing. So when we come back, and I have this shellac on it and everything else, you'll see it nicely pinned out. So after this, we're actually going to be going on to what your internal parts of the hat are and a little bit of, I guess, pattern making. Since I'm a little, let's say, slapdash, I've mentioned this many times, I modify. So I'm going to show you guys how to kind of modify things and do mock-ups and stuff. So we're going to pin this and then move on to the next step. Okay, so we're going to talk briefly about the insides of the hat, the lining, and your sweatband. I'm not going to go into this too much, just because this video has ended up being pretty long. I might actually do a full tutorial, maybe just dedicated to just the hatband and the insides, but I want to get you guys started. So I have my patterns for the fedora. This is my poor beat up trial and error fedora. So I basically try everything on him. It's this one's a medium, I believe. I have pattern. I made the pattern myself. So when you guys make patterns yourself, always do a mock-up. The husband was trying to help me with this one. That's why it's got some ragged edges on it. But it still works as a mock-up. It's fine. So you want to take the mock-up, pin it, and sew it, and fit it to whatever you're doing. This goes with dressmaking, millinery, anything that you do that has to do with sewing. Always do a mock-up, because you don't know how your pattern's going to respond to where you're trying to get it to lay flat, or it's going to pucker, or anything like that before you actually go on to your more expensive, better fabrics. The most linings for fedoras have a tendency to actually be satiny. I'm actually going for a cotton. We live in Florida. I'm trying for more breathable materials. So I'm going for cotton. But I'm actually going to stiffen this up after I actually construct the whole thing. And the inside of it, I'm going to shellac it. And it stiffens it up and it'll actually stand up on its own. When you do your pattern for this, you do not want this to extend all the way to the lip of the hat here. You want it to be just go under just a little tiny bit where your sweatband is. So maybe like even about that line, the glue line there. You do want a little tiny bit of glue on the inside just to keep it from flumping out of the hat. So I just usually do run a seam there and a seam over on the crown part of my hat. Any more than that is just excessive, and it's going to saturate through your fabric, and it's just going to make a big mess. Also, tacking it down is a lot better than gluing, at least for me anyway. But hey, if you're first going, just go ahead and glue. I ain't going to judge. So Then we have the pattern for the sweatbands. So traditionally, these are made out of leather in fedoras and cowboy hats and Stetsons and any of your other like Wild West-ish kind of hats. It's a lot cleaner look. It's a lot more professional look. It's very, very traditional. A lot of places are actually moving toward doing cloth on the inside. I like cloth, especially because we live in Florida. And depending on what type of like lambskin, Italian lambskin leather, or anything like that is used, sometimes they have some bleed in them or staining. And if you have a lighter colored hat, even if it's just a nude color, just like it's not treated with anything else, it still actually might bleed through the hat. So I kind of stay away from things like that. Like if I do like my straw fedoras and whatnot, I always go for a lighter color hatband or sweatband. Sorry. So this is up to you. You can do this in leather. You can do this in fabric. You can do this in canvas. Play with the different materials and see what you're more comfortable with, how things lay, how you have to sew. I would do your pattern with a little bit of seam allowance. Like you can cut it originally with seam allowance, or you can just remember that you have, how much seam allowance you want to get. As you want it to fold over, you can double it over. You can just put your liner in the back and just fold it over. You can completely fold it and sew it. This is all personal choices on what you want to do on the inside of your hat and what kind of look you're going for and what kind of comfort, especially if you're making it for you and you're not a fan of, sweaty leather, or you're a fan of leather and you love how it smells. I love how leather smells. But for this, we're going to be doing both fabric on the inside because sweaty heads. I think I've said sweaty entirely too many times. Does it make people uncomfortable? I'm sorry. So, cutting, sewing, shellacking, all of that I will leave up to you guys. Leave me some photos in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys come up with for the insides of your hats. I'm hoping this was at least a little bit helpful, but like I said, I'm going to try and go in depth in it later, but this is its own beast. And I just wanted to focus on more so like the structure of your hat today. So we'll go back to our regularly scheduled Brim program.
Okay, so we've definitely time traveled. So today we're nice and dry from our shellac and everything. So what we're going to do is actually mark to trim the brim. So I wanted to start right here at the base of our crown, marking 3. There are actually things you could probably get off of Amazon or Etsy. They're the Brim Cutters. They are a little pricey, but I would like to just show you how to do it this way. So I'm just going to go all the way around. For this, I wouldn't use a regular pair of scissors. I use my little rotary tool. This makes life a lot easier. And the Brim Cutter is a neat piece of wood that it literally curves on the part of the brim, and it's got a razor blade and just goes whoop all the way around. It's beautiful. It's perfect. But I'm trying to show you guys at-home techniques. Just using a regular piece of sidewalk chalk. All around. We're going to set that aside. And then we're going to mark our other one, which I promised I'd show you guys what it looks like when I take it off. And then, oh, I turn the steamer on. Definitely a different day. I'm wearing a different outfit. Hey. And my camera might step back. Grab that. Okay. So, this is what we got. I already started to actually sand it down a little bit too. Nice and soft. So right now this is hard. You can see. I should have put a little bit more shellac on there. Be a soft little brim. I think shellac has a very odd smell when you heat it up. Well, that's an interesting noise that we just heard. Did we forget to pause the TV? Just going around and just free shaping the top. Not quite happy with it just as yet. I'm not getting you hot enough, so. Woo! Let's pick my front again. There we go. Nice fun shape right there. Pop out these sides. Hold that. Whoop, right there. You got your fedora shape. I'm going to mark this and then cut it. I'm going to cut the other one. And then we're going to move on to doing our trimming. Okay, so we're sewing on the brim today. We are not going to go through the entirety of the brim right now. It's going to take a little while, and I'm sure you guys will probably fall asleep watching this. I mean, hey, maybe we can just make some brim sewing ASMR or something like that. So later on in another video, I'm actually going to show you guys full trimming on how to make the bows and everything like that, and doing the lining on the inside and the sweatband on the inside out of cloth. As this video, I think I've already mentioned, is getting kind of long. So we're going to continue to sew this all the way around. And I'll see you guys in a minute or two. Okay, so I sewed all of this on here. I'm not really liking how it's laying because it's obviously poofing up, so I'm gonna actually later on add some more steam and some more shellac to give it more of a rolled part because it's a little floppy. I like mine to be a little bit more hard. Your sweatband gets sewed in before you add your lining. So we have our lining, this is the back, and normally I would stiffen this, but I wanted to actually show you guys how this goes in. So you just tuck it in, let's roll this up, it just gets tucked under there. Now you can tack this with a little bit of the glue or a little bit of sewing. If you do add this shellac to it, which I highly recommend, it'll actually make this nice and stiff, it'll stand up on its own, so it would just need just a little tiny bit up here in the crown and a little tiny bit down here just to hold it in place so it doesn't wiggle all over the place. So it fits in there nicely. Pull you up a little bit. Here's that. Again, for trimming, I will show you guys how to make actually like really good bows and things. This is just basically I sewed this and just kind of tuck it on there. Guess we are not advertising Coca-Cola. So I would just tack this down. Have my little button there. Tack it down here and tack it down here. This guy needs a lot more sanding and stuff like that to smooth it down. But yeah, we'll cover that in another video and sand all of this down and it'll be nice and pretty. Have a nice broad brim fedora. So I want to see what you guys do. Show me some pictures in the comments. So I hope you guys had a lot of fun working on the fedoras. I know it was something you guys asked for quite a bit, and I hope the wait was worth it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and hey, show me some pictures of your finished work because I'd absolutely love to see it, and we'll have even more fun working at home with hats. See you guys soon.